Tomorrow morning, Time magazine will name its Person of the Year. Since 1927, the publication has recognized the one person in the world who for that year made the most impact or influence on the news. Clearly, that tells you this isn't always an honor. For example, past winners have included Hitler, Stalin, and Ayatollah Khomeini. So who will it be this year? Here are the finalists. President Trump was named Person of the Year in 2016, was a finalist last year, and no surprise, again this year. With every tweet and rally, he makes headlines. Next, Robert Mueller, the former head of the FBI, is in charge of the special counsel that's investigating the Russians' role in the presidential election. Another person, Vladimir Putin. Why? See subject of special counsel investigation. Moon Jae-in, South Korea's president, made the list, mainly because he met with the North Korean leader, a first for the leaders of that divided nation since the Korean War. Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, the professor that became a lightning rod for both praise and controversy when she publicly accused then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her when they were teenagers. Kavanaugh was, of course, later confirmed to the court, but Dr. Ford's testimony forced us to have a conversation about why many women never go public about abuse. Jamal Khashoggi, a well-known journalist and critic of the Saudi government, walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul where he was murdered. The CIA says Saudi's crown prince ordered the assassination. Separated families. This summer, more than 2,500 kids were taken from their parents at the border as they tried to cross. Their images and stories dominated much of the news this summer. The gun control movement called March for Our Lives, started by the students at Parkland High in Florida after a shooting there in February left 17 kids dead. Ryan Coogler, the mastermind behind the movie Black Panther. It broke all kinds of records and barriers. The first blockbuster with a predominantly black cast has a real shot at being nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And finally, I like to call this a relatively safe choice. The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. What a story. An American actress of color marries a British prince. It's been the kind of year where some folks just want to cover with a story that feels good.